Hello and welcome to Empower Hour. You are here with Coach Jim and Coach Amy. Oh, look at that. You got that little cup again, don't you?
You always seem surprised.
I always do. I know. And this is, I sometimes, I got a brand new clown mug.
Oh, another new clown mug.
Oh, yeah. But this one was actually made in occupied Japan, and it's pretty creepy also. But in honor of your request, I have the tall one.
I do appreciate that. The clowns are
Yeah.
scary.
Well, something, clowns are entertaining, I think. And it's like, so today, the question we're going to start today is like, how is life? If you had two words to describe life today, Coach Amy, how would you describe life?
2 words? Are you kidding me?
Would I do that to you?
2 words to describe life today. No, can't do it.
You just can't do it. Okay. I'm going to say growth and possibility. That's my 2 words to describe today.
I'm not a fan of 2 words.
Okay,
Peace
then
and
3.
harmony keeps coming up.
Oh, peace and harmony. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay.
Though I feel like it needs like an explanation. I don't like doing
Yeah.
2 words.
Nah,
So
I don't think it needs it. I just think we need to. So today's topic, we're going to talk about developing your superpower. And then once you have that superpower developed, how do you live your passion? And superpowers are something that we have talked about quite frequently, actually. Back about 6 months ago, it's how we used to start all of our conversations is, what is your superpower? So let's start that way with you. Coach Amy, what is your superpower?
Oh, there are many and they are varied.
Yes, but for today, in this moment.
I was going to say the one that appears in this moment. And definitely one that I'm realizing more and more that is not entirely unique to me, but definitely unique in the population and puts me in a minority, is my ability to visualize models. And so when I'm listening to anything, pretty much, I literally see the frameworks and the patterns, and they appear. They often appear in front of me on the windscreen. Like, I've had to pull over the car numerous times when I'm working with a client intently in their model world. I will have to pull over the car to capture it, and then I can continue driving because it literally appears on the windscreen and blocks my view. And so in that moment, it's kind of not quite superpower-esque, but it definitely is one of my gifts, is that ability to see models.
That's quite beautiful. Quite beautiful. And me, I think mine is working with people and having people deepen the understanding of how they got wherever they are, and then literally how they can step into their healing.
Yes.
Because to me,
absolutely.
we live in a very unique world. And what has happened over the last few years, I think people have become far more introspective. And once you actually understand how you create this experience called life, one of the bonus byproducts of that is you could also understand how to literally create and empower yourself to get through and heal whatever the traumas, the dramas, whatever you've dealt with in the past. It's the ability for you to step into that and literally create an amazing life.
Yeah.
And even empower.
Would you distinguish between gifts and superpowers?
I think the development of your gifts gives you your superpowers. I do not think And I suspect it's the same down under as it is up over, is that our education system, there are not a lot of people that really understand how you create. You know, you're taught some of the basics, but yet the deeper you understand how you live in your mind, the easier it is to navigate and literally create transformation. And I think each of us has innate gifts, and time gives us the ability. I mean, if you think about the elderly, like a lot of the elderly, I would consider very wise because they've had all these times and they get to a point where they have an epiphany, and they, you know, it's why if you think about children, like parents can really do no right, but aunts and uncles, grandmothers and grandfathers, they can really do no wrong with the young people, because a lot of times the wisdom that they have, they can impart, that literally becomes their superpower. And the thing is what I've seen is there are so many people who are living their passion later in life. And what I think is, why not live your passion earlier in life? Why not figure out what that superpower is? And then as a result of figuring that superpower out, live your passion.
Yeah. Two thoughts occur to me. One, having worked in nursing homes, I think a lot of the elderly are not living out their gifts and superpowers. I think that it is more than time that is required. It is a willingness to experience and dive into life and that recognition. And there are a lot of very unhappy people in nursing homes. So I don't know if you know, but I used to work in aged care. So I used to work in nursing homes.
I did know that. I didn't think about it for this episode, but I did know that. Yeah.
So what I've noticed in that space is that very, very few of the people that I've cared for in the nursing homes actually feel like they live a life that was fulfilled. Very, very few.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's not time that is because they've all had the same amount of time, roughly, like they've all had at least 80 years kind of thing. It is our willingness to first, as you say, find or recognize our gifts and then apply them and leverage them and utilize them. And that is how we create that life of fulfillment, is in sharing our gifts. But until we recognize them, own them, and then use them, we're not getting that fulfillment.
Okay, I would tend to agree. And to me, that's the power, whether it's a coach, a mentor, a therapist, if you can. And I guess I was thinking, I know, you know, I do this side gig where I actually go out in the desert for a week, and it is its own unique society. But there are a lot of people there that they are literally living their passion. And what happens after they've gone to this event for a few years is they tend to go out in life and they tend to live their passion out in life. And I think it's such a unique environment out there that it tests people. And as a result of the test, there are a lot of people, and you know me, I tend to see the more hopeful side of things. There are a lot of people who, as they successfully navigate that, they quite literally develop a passion that they maybe had an idea of, but gets awakened out there.
The tests are crucial in my experience and my observation. Without that, and so many people avoid the tests. So what's coming up in my mind is Hero's Journey.
Oh yeah, I love Campbell's. Yeah.
I've been looking at it recently again through the lens of the tarot cards. So the major arcana, walking through the Hero's Journey, which I put together and constructed for myself, because I want a more literal, tangible, like I want it written down. But
Okay.
that moment, so lots of people, so I mean, the hero's journey, for anyone not familiar with it, we live in the old world. There is a call to action, and then there's a moment where we refuse the call, and then we step into accepting the call, and then we hit tests.
Yes.
We meet a mentor, we cross the threshold. I just pulled up the screen so that I've got it in front of me, the tests, the allies, and the enemies. And then that moment of inward reflection, and then we get the wisdom. But a lot of people aren't even hearing that call to action.
Okay.
So they don't hear the call. And if they do hear the call, they refuse the call. And very few are moving on to meeting the mentor, crossing the threshold, to actually be given the opportunity to face the tests, to find the allies, to conquer the enemies. And so for me, finding and connecting with my superpowers and my innate gifts came from stepping over that threshold, listening to the call and following through on it, finding mentors. And they can be one-on-one coaches. I've definitely had a couple of them along the lines, and some of them have been allies, and some of them have been the enemies or have provided the tests for which I needed to overcome. And then there are also some in books. There are heroes that we find, that, like, there's opportunities for us to find mentors, role models, people to follow in the footsteps of in all kinds of places, including movies. Movies is one of the best ways to live out.
Oh boy, I tell you,
This metaphorically.
Yeah, in the early part of my coaching, I used to use movies, and I still somewhere have a whole file of over a dozen movies with the coaching notes to go with them, so that people could actually watch a movie and learn a lesson that would shift or potentially begin the transformation or continue the transformation of their life as a result of watching that movie. Very true.
Yeah, there's a bunch of movies that are really good for Hero's Journey that I studied when I was studying Hero's Journey. The one that was, well, not the one, because there's been many, but one of the many that's popping up in my mind right now is Turning Red, which is a beautiful Disney Pixar movie on, may not be Pixar, but it's this beautiful movie on collapsing generational trauma. And it's got, so the daughter, it is a literal turning red. The daughter gets their period. And of course, there's all this controversy on why are they putting out a movie, because it's a natural body function. And it shouldn't have all of this stigma.
Movie. That's true. That's true. And hopefully this generation can take the stigma around around a woman getting their period, or a female getting their period. Yeah, I've watched that movie. You recommended that movie, what, 6, 8, 9 months ago? It was
a while back.
Wonderful movie. And it's really a wonderful movie about coming of age.
Coming of age, finding your own feet. So without wanting to give too many spoilers, and I do highly recommend, if you haven't seen the movie, go watch the movie. But the daughter chooses her own path. And there was so much healing for my mother-daughter, like me with my mother relationship through that movie, that I'll never get, or I don't believe I will ever get from my mom. Yes. And so hearing the mother in that movie say all of the things that I wish I could hear from my own mum, and then the beauty of passing it down to my daughter. And so she has boundaries, she has all kinds of things that she brings to life, which makes parenting a whole new ball game. And yet I am delighted that she has that. That's her tapping into her, I wouldn't say superpowers, but tapping into her own self-identity and not having to be a clone of me. So she looks very like me. She's got some similar interests to me. It would be very easy to mold her into this clone of me, this little mini me. And when she was little, I allowed for that. And there's pictures of her mimicking me with towels on her head. And
right.
She's had T-shirts of like, I am my mini mum, or whatever it said, which is age appropriate when they're little. They want to be part of that. She's now 14 and hitting I don't want to be a part. She wants to forge her own path. And so as parents, and I think when you're speaking before about parents, there are some parents that children will listen to the wisdom of, and there are others that they won't. And it depends on how authoritarian we are and how vulnerable we are. My kids are very, very aware of my mistakes. They're very,
Yes.
very aware of my, I want a better word than flaws, but flaws, weaknesses, not strengths, to come to a better word.
But don't you
And
think that's a generational thing as a result of movies like this? Like this next generation is being like a lot of,
there are plenty of parents that still aren't playing in this space.
yes, but your children get to see this in you, and in watching this movie, they can take a very basic biological function and there is zero shame around it. It is just what's
Yeah.
so, and they do get to develop their superpowers in those critical teen years. And you think about your kids when they were very small, they want to be just like you and Mike. They really do. And now she gets to become, one of the things I loved about that movie was quite literally, she got to become independent. She got to literally develop a support network. And I don't want to give too much away because it really is a good movie.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful example of how to come of age with strength.
The word I'd use rather than independent, because she becomes interdependent with her friends rather than independent completely. And I'm
Good
not a
point.
huge fan of the word independent. I think there's too much around feeling like we have to do it on our own instead of creating interdependence with people of our choice. So she breaks free from the tribe and finds her own new, and she doesn't break free from the tribe. That's not accurate. There is still that connection there.
She
She
molds
definitely
and she
is.
creates her own being.
Yeah,
Maybe that's a better word.
she's definitely allowed to step into her own uniqueness.
Mhm.
And I think that is one of the pieces that we all need. I don't know if I've talked about the trust me model in calls publicly. I think you and I have talked about it occasionally, Jim.
Mhm.
But there's the trust me model works through from trust,
Mhm.
relatability, finding other people we can, so trusting ourselves to some extent, finding other people that we can relate to and trust them, and then finding our uniqueness. And in terms of tapping into our own superpowers, tapping into creating our life of passion or purpose, depending on which word we want to use,
Yes.
that uniqueness and recognizing our innate gifts that are different. I don't know anybody else, and I'm not saying there's not other people that do it, but I don't know personally anybody else that has models flash up on their windscreen. That for me is a uniqueness.
Yes, that is your uniqueness, and that is one of your gifts. And you have developed it to when that gift, like when you're at that moment, you know exactly how to process it so that it is literally one of your strengths. That is, and I think we all have those. It's just developing your for those of you listening, it's what is your superpower? And
And I'd
if you,
start with what is your uniqueness?
good point,
Because
very
for
good
the
point. Yeah.
majority of people, and I don't know, maybe it's not the majority of people, but certainly for me, if someone had have asked me a couple of years ago, what is your superpower? I would have said, I don't have superpowers. I don't. And then even if they softened it to what are
Interesting.
your innate gifts?
Mhm.
I don't have innate gifts. Like I was suicidal and depressed. Like we're only going back a decade. There was
Right.
no way I was going to be able to connect with gifts, superpowers, all of these words that I now, even passion or purpose. So far, what makes you unique? And there's a time where that would have had me struggle as well,
Yes.
because I was still so tied into needing to fit in. And anything unique sets us apart and is perceived as dangerous. And so it took me well into my 30s to acknowledge that it was okay for me to be unique.
Well, and
I
it's
didn't
okay to
need to
have
be the
those
same.
thoughts. Those thoughts,
Oh,
I
absolutely.
think, are quite, and yet you transcended those to figure out what your superpower is, what your gifts are. That
Yeah.
is the beauty. And the thing, I mean, let's be honest, it's why I coach, is because I had a traumatic childhood. It took me into my 30s to figure it out.
Yeah.
I have clients that have it figured out before they're 20. I have clients who had it figured out before their mid-20s. They
Yeah.
are living a far more passion-filled life. They know their superpower. I
Yeah.
mean, right now I'm just thinking of one that it's been a few years, but he is graduating with the degree that inspires him. He is on his path. The demons of his path are not there. And I was just talking to him a few weeks ago. He's unstoppable right now, and he's mid-20s.
Yeah. And I think it is allowing that space for us to break free of what we think we have to be and discover who we are, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when you do that, you really can create a life that has a lot more joy, a lot more happiness. And the funny thing is, right? I don't want to say we're developing a panacea, because we all go through highs and lows. There are times that we feel in love with life, and there are times that we feel not so much in love with life. But if we can see that we actually go, you know, we're almost going to get back to that flow, that ebb and flow of life, right? And you know, it's been a long time since we talked about this, but really, if you think about it, about every 30 days, you really go through a cycle that is, if the deeper you understand your cycle, and again, I'm going to say this, right? I think men have cycles too. It's just not as obvious as the cycles that the feminine have. But the deeper you understand that, the easier it is to get out of those really tough headspaces.
Yeah. The more we understand the conditions we're imposing on who we have to be, the more we're able to break free of them and access. So in the beginning, that's to me, so finding our superpowers is great, but it's allowing ourselves to be unique that seems to be the catalyst from my perspective, allowing ourselves to acknowledge, because for so many of us, those uniquenesses, we were criticized for, we were shamed, we were teachers that didn't understand them. So my ability to see the models and the frameworks, that was pretty well shut down by the time I was in high school, because people were telling me that it was wrong, that I was wrong. My intuition was pretty much shut down by the time I was in high school, because it was funny, I was looking at a Bible verse just before we got on, the trust not in your own understanding. And I'm like, where did that come from? Because you sent through the topic. And so, yeah, well, I was looking at it. Yeah. So, and out of context, because I'm like, why are we telling people that? That just is ridiculous. In context, though, well, so in context, I can't remember whether it was Psalm or Proverb 3. In context, it starts with trust in the Lord. Do not lean on your own understanding, rather than do not trust in your own understanding. So lean on the higher power, and that changes the meaning very significantly. Though I was taught do not trust in your own power, which is very different to do not lean on your own understanding. And so do not lean on your own understanding, as I was reading it in context, because pulling out a Bible verse is ridiculous. It is a massively long document, and I'm not suggesting that the Bible is all right. I'm not, like, I don't want to fall into that religious trap right now. Just this say, and I can pull up any coaching saying and do the same thing with it, and it's like one of the coaching sayings we had was trust in the system. And that to me, the complete version of that is trust in the system until you can trust in yourself. And
Right.
so often the mentors that I've heard reflect that back to me fall on the trust in my system without adding in the until you can trust in yourself, and they don't allow for that uniqueness and that spread.
Right.
But they do not lean on your own understanding, because generally our understanding is limited. We've all got biases, filters, and understanding comes from the mind, not the heart. Understanding is this mental justification. Don't lean on the mind. Allow yourself to connect with the higher power and the innate gifts. And so when I was reading it through that perspective, it opened my eyes. But how many of us have been conditioned? Don't trust yourself.
Well,
Don't
I
trust in
think
your
that's
own
a
innateness.
very early conditioning.
Absolutely.
And yet I truly believe we all have an innate wisdom.
Yes.
And if you, I mean, the mind is very judgmental. And I think part of the indoctrination program that hits us from a very early age is exactly what you said. Yet when you can understand that quite literally the mind can sit at a chair in the board of directors, but at the head of the chair is your heart. If you can begin to filter things through the heart, because I think the heart has its own innate wisdom. You know, you take a look at children. The youngest of us are literally these little beings of love. We look at them, oh, they're cute, but then we have to learn all those things that are not of love. And yet somewhere along the line, the elderly, they develop, a lot of them develop this space where they come back to a created love, right? They come back to this space of loving and accepting.
Some
do. Well, no, some do. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yes. Yeah. And I understand, like the nursing home work you had, there may have been a lot of people that never did get into living that passion.
Well, and we're never given the opportunity that's not entirely accurate either. Never saw the opportunity before them to be able to accept it, which goes back to the hero's journey and not hearing that call to action.
Right.
One of my favorite, and I know I'm on the Disney movies today, but one of my favorite songs is Elsa in Frozen 2, and she's singing, it's called Into the Unknown. And in it, she literally goes through 7 different ways to refuse her call to action. And there's a snippet video I've got somewhere. I'll make sure I find it. I'll pop it in the comments for anyone that wants to watch it. But she literally goes through all of the different ways. But she heard the call. And there are so many people. So there's this, note calling to her. And she tries rolling over and going back to sleep. There's the first way that she's avoiding the call. But so many people don't even hear that whisper or that note drawing us into this other possibility. There are moments, or we hear it and we just shut it down. The other day I had an intuitive hit. It's like, you're going the wrong way, Amy, turn around and go back. And I went, no, I'm not turning around. We're going this way. Like, I'm here now, we're going this way. I drove 15 minutes out of town and hit a road closed. And so I then had no choice but to turn around. And I could have saved myself the half an hour, but I heard that call. But how many of us are there moments, and I don't know what I'm not hearing because I'm not hearing it.
Right.
We've all got those moments where we're not hearing. And so, that is what I see in the nursing homes, was the majority of people never heard the call to action. To consciously refuse the call. They're still so in old work. Now, there were some that were there, they heard the call, they refused the call, and they regret not following it. Right. And then there were some, and this was a minority, I could probably, thinking of my 100-bed nursing home, there was probably 3, maybe 4 who had lived a life so completely that they were lying in the nursing home, thrilled with what they had done and
Right.
absolutely delighted. Like they had left everything on the field, so to speak.
I love that. I mean, I also think about the movie Inside Out. I think the movie Inside Out was one of the first movies that, from a young human and even middle or older human perspective, you can begin to understand how the emotions play with the words and how we create this inner world. And the deeper you understand that, the more you can quite literally transform your experience. And the funny thing is one of my teachers worked on that movie because that was part of it's part of the philosophy that I developed in my coaching philosophy, and it's part of it. And it is a another, right? There are all these movies that are just, they really assist you, because the deeper one understands, the easier it is for one to transform.
Yeah, you and I see this differently.
We do, which is why, you know. Well, so may I attempt to say it your way?
You may.
I may, okay, right? You could be very entertained by this. Is that if you've fallen into a life of patterns, when you can understand your pattern and begin to see things, you can shift your pattern. That's my attempt to go at Amy's, like how Amy kind of understands things.
Yeah, so the instantly I the word understand isn't one that I tend to use.
Well,
I tend to go for awareness.
So take my word out, put your word in. See,
Yeah, so
we have differences, but we also have so much common.
There is so much that we have in common.
Yeah.
So the reason I veer away from understand is I see too many people get consumed in doing that through the mind. Now, I think when you say understand, you mean an emotional understanding, not a mental understanding.
No, I mean,
though I could be
very
wrong.
much so. No, very much so.
Yeah. And so when I hear understand, I think of the mind. And I know that's not what you necessarily mean, which is why I want to help clarify for anyone listening. This isn't a mental understanding. This is an emotional understanding, and it's a level of resonance potentially.
Which I would call a knowing. You would call a resonance, I would call a knowing, because it's just the deeper you get to this space of transcending, you get this space of knowing.
Yeah, which I hold into the awareness, because again, knowing to me pulls me back into my head.
Okay.
And so it's this deep state of awareness of our patterns, as you said, also our preferences that we can articulate through profiles. So I am a huge fan of profiles to expand our awareness of the patterns. And I know you're not, and that's okay. We've all got our own tool.
It's just, and each of us is very effective, because one of the things about humans out there, we tend to resonate with different people. And when you find someone you resonate with, that is what you follow.
Yes. Yeah. So for me, and part of it is feeding my mind chatter. I love the models. I love the patterns. I love the profiles. I also, you and I come at the world slightly differently, because I tend to look to the external world for more feedback, whereas you're more looking to the internal world.
Right. Because of all the filters and blah, blah, blah that gets created by our experiences as young. We're like, everything happens inside.
And so,
and we differ there, and that's okay.
Yeah, and we differ there. And like you say, there are so many different humans out there. There are some that are going to land with you, and there are some that are going to land with me, and there are some that are not going to like either of us. They're probably not still here at this point.
No, they've turned it off at this point and said, boy.
So and I love that about us. And the thing I love most about us is we do have vastly different language, vastly different ways of communicating things, vastly different ways of approaching things. And yet the love and the respect that we have for each other and each other's methods shines no matter what. So while,
Yeah.
and even just then, like, can I play and try and see if I can articulate back yours? And I appreciate the effort. There's still room to go. I don't know that I could accurately reflect yours back to you either, because both of us have our filters in place and
It's
our
okay.
biases, and that is
Yeah.
absolutely okay.
Yeah.
We're both
Yeah.
attempting to. We do genuinely both come from a place of building awareness or having understanding or knowing or whatever it is that we want to use
Well, I
each
think
other.
at the end of the day, I am a stand for the empowerment of humanity.
Yeah.
And there's
And
100 different ways, and I think you are too. There's 100 different ways. I, like you, it's like, I love the different movies because so many movies out there, they can do a better example respectively for each of us than a lot of other examples. Because we all love
Yes.
movies. We live in a day that when we can sit down and watch a movie, it kind of gives us a break from our own mind chatter.
yes.
And
And
if there's
allows the opportunity to play out what we can't necessarily play out in real life.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
It expands our awareness. It's one of the best ways. I remember in the very light hypnosis training that I did, it was make sure you distract the conscious mind as you shovel all the good stuff into the unconscious. And that is what movies are doing. They're
Right.
distracting our conscious mind with pretty colors and various catchy songs and all of those things, while shoveling all the good stuff into, and this is why I love the direction that Disney and Pixar have headed, because they are destigmatizing. So Turning Red is a little kids movie. It's not for
I would
teens.
say
It's also an adult movie. Yeah.
Okay, good. It's like we would disagree, because I'd say Turning Reds is for adolescents, it's for young people, and it's for
everyone.
It's for everyone to take a look.
My poor attempt, it's suitable for little kids as well as, and so there's a whole pile of people out there saying you can't talk about those with.
Wait,
it
you
is
can't talk about someone having a period, right? You just can't,
which they don't. Yeah, which there are a school of people out there that, and this is one of my hot buttons, that my kids have known since they were tiny. They would ask questions, I would answer questions.
Yeah.
Now there's a limit to what I share, and it's age appropriate.
Absolutely.
But the movie Turning Red, I think there's one pad in the entire movie. Like, it is such a metaphorical discussion that unless you are a preteen and aware of it, no 5-year-old is walking out of that movie knowing stuff about periods that they didn't know before. Then they're seeing the transformation.
But a 5-year-old is going to understand the power of tribe, and is going to understand the power of elders from that movie. A teenager who is going to begin her period, or even a male who says these females have a period, you got to understand the implications of it in a way that is very safe.
Yes, and I absolutely love that. So the conversations are shifting, the focus is shifting societally, which I love, to a more self-empowered state. That is something you and I, Jim, and we use very different language for it, and we play with it in different ways. But at the core of everything we do, we are here to empower our clients.
Yeah. It's why we call it Empower Hour. It's why at the end of the day, the more people out there that become empowered, we're just going to live in a better world.
Yeah. And the thing that you and I do, I think you stay more in the transformational coaching
I do.
realm.
That's the only arena I play in. It really is.
So I definitely do transformational coaching. I leverage action coaching to get people in to do the transformational coaching. And so that language was really poor, but I leverage the it's the marketing hack of sell people what they want and give them what they need, and make sure those two things are aligned. Like I don't switch what I'm delivering. Someone comes to me for whatever they want, and I deliver what they want, as well as the opportunities for what they need. Sorry.
And you're very open. No, I just want to say you're very open in what you're providing. You really are.
Yeah, my promises, which are very, very few and far between, are never action orientated. They are,
well, with me they were.
No, the promise that I made, and we can go back to the recordings, the promise I made to you was that I would be a companion. There was no promise that you would actually complete your book. That's all on you.
But that was why I engaged with you, is that in 6 weeks a book was written.
Yes. So the book was written. That was never my promise though. Okay. And so I'm really conscious, particularly in those action coaching spaces, because I have clients coming to me who want to make 10K in their business in the next 12 months, in the next like 2 months or whatever it is. Yeah. And I will say, I have the systems and I have the supports and I can help with that. I make no promise of the results that you will achieve. So whether you wrote a book or not, I can give you so my promise to you was, I have a system that works. I've written a book myself in 11 days.
Yep.
And I can empower you if you continue to choose to take the action.
Right. And I've written one in 4 days. It's still unpublished. Yet the one I wrote in 6 weeks is with an editor right now, getting edited. And within a few months, it will be out.
Yeah. And my promise to you is not necessarily that you get the published book, but that you have all of the tools to get the published book. Okay. Whether you pick up the tools, whether you pick up the hammer, whether you follow through on that. And that is something that I find interesting in the coaching world, is the promises people make and then blame the clients for not following through. Whereas I start by making a promise, this is what I can bring, how much you choose to pick up. So that is in every sales conversation I do. There is no promise of you can write a book in 30 days. There is, you can write your book absolutely, wholly and completely, and I will champion you. Some of the responsibility is on me to make sure that I'm following through and giving you the tools, making sure you've got everything you need. Well, and some of the responsibility is on the client to follow through. Well,
I would say the same thing. I cannot transform anybody. I can have them choose the path, step into the path, and they create their transformation. But I can't.
And so in that transformative space, it's a co-creation between coach and client, and the client needs to take a level of responsibility. In a lot of the action coaching, like just the pure action coaching or action mentoring more accurately, there are promises as like get 20K in 2 months, or write your book in 70 days, but those tangible promises. And then when clients don't achieve them, the coach blames the client. Whereas and blame is the wrong word, but I set my client up from the very beginning. It's like, this is what I can bring. I make no promise of outcome. So for you, Jim, you got your book written and it's done. And part of that was me sharing structures, but most of that was you willing to do the work. Like, you were the easiest client in terms of following through and taking action. And so recognizing that up front is so important. And screening. So I know for me, the clients that I work best with are the ones that already have some sense of their uniqueness. Whereas I sense for you, Jim, you're working with people that are stepping into finding that uniqueness.
Very true. And they're there to develop their superpower, and they're at a place in life. Because if I take a look at my ideal versus dream, they're at a place in life where they have the ability to do the work and create the result.
Yeah. Which means when screening clients, and this is one of the things that the industry as a whole, so you and I do this really well, but the industry as a whole
does not do it that well.
Does not. and they'll
No.
accept anybody. And yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff in around that. Knowing where on the journey our clients need to be.
Mhm.
So for me, I suspect, and I'm curious where you see the people you're working with in the hero's journey, but for me, I'm working with the people that are at that meeting the mentor stage. They've had the call to action. They've generally bypassed half of their refusing of the call elements, and they're ready to cross the threshold and step into, this is what I want. Whereas I
Right.
think for you, a lot of the time they're at that call to action, and you navigate
Well,
through the refusal of the call, though I could be wrong.
no, I think you have a measure of correctness. I think a lot of that, like I love Joseph Campbell's work. I remember really studying it. For me, they know that there is something better where they are at. They have a low level of life satisfaction, and they're willing to do the work to get somewhere better. But it's them doing the work with me providing the guidance.
Do you find they're still at that space of, I want this, but I'm going to refuse it a little bit longer? Or are they really at that, they're ready to cross the threshold stage?
No, I think they're at the space of, I want this, but I don't know how. It's because I think a lot of their societal conditioning has them limited. It's literally part of unlearning that which may not be working as well, and having them find a way to step into a learning that all of a sudden they see the freedom and the potential. I mean, let's be honest. You look at a very young human, like they're unstoppable. I'm going to fly. I think today I'm going to go out and fly. And they literally live in this space where they go out. And of course, they're not actually flying, but what they are doing is they are creating the mental mind space that they are unstoppable. And part of the domestication process stops us.
Yes.
You can't do that. Oh, come on. You can't do that. Like,
definitely.
You know.
Have you ever come across the straw and potato exercise? I know it sounds somewhat random. There is a point to this at this point.
I have not come. I saw that on your Facebook page and I rolled my eyes and I'm like, oh my gosh. So no, I have not seen that.
You will have seen that so I posted it publicly and there was a handful of comments on that, but I also posted it into the VIP client group, and the comment on that, I don't know if you saw it, because I posted, should we play with this on Wednesday night for group mentoring? And the answer was no, with 3 exclamation points. It's like, what do you do? The reason I
wasn't even the one that made that comment.
No, it was someone else.
Of course.
And no one else has commented after that. I'm curious to see how that conversation goes in group mentoring tonight. The reason I ask about the potato exercise, so the theory is you can push a straw through a potato.
Right.
However, any hesitation and you're screwed.
Oh, so you're talking about momentum.
So it's a level of momentum. The way I saw it, so this is how, I don't know what the entire potato exercise is. I just want to put in a disclaimer here. There is someone out there teaching the potato exercise. I saw someone that had applied the potato exercise and went, it can't be that freaking hard, and went and picked up a potato and a straw and started playing with it. So I don't know all of the philosophy behind this. I don't know. Just as my disclaimer here, and this is how I ride. I see something, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I must admit, it took 2 or 3 times for me to see the potato and go, all right, now I'm going to do this potato thing. Now, I went out and I started with a metal straw, which is absolutely cheating.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything. Yes, it is.
So, I just kind of wanted, I wanted to see. It's like, if I can get the metal straw through, then I can start to work out the technique. And because I'm reverse engineering this from having seen someone posting a potato with straws in it.
Perfect.
So the idea that I picked up from the post, and again, this is like playing Chinese whispers, and I've only read the tiniest piece, is the maintaining the momentum, but it's visualizing the outcome and seeing the straw go the whole way through. So when I was able to get the angle right and maintain the momentum, the straw goes through effortlessly. And the metal straw goes through effortlessly, even if you lose momentum, because you can push again with the metal straw. With the
You can
paper
develop the
straws,
force. Yeah, with the paper
Yeah.
or the plastic. Yeah,
So-
imagine the paper ones would be, you would have to keep that momentum going for the entire
That's
time.
it. So the paper ones, if you lose momentum and there's any hesitation, force will not solve it.
Yeah,
Whereas the metal one, the force
Mhm.
will work. Now I've got Star Wars and use
Yeah, I
the
was going to
force
say,
Luke
we're
in my
not
head.
going to Star Wars now.
But that moment, so I had 7 paper straws, because we use metal straws because the paper straws just annoy me. And we had 7 paper straws in my glove box from where we'd gone and bought slushies. And we throw the paper straws in the glove box and then we replace them with the metal straws when we come inside. So I went down and I pulled out these 7 straws. And I can't remember which way round it was, but I either got 3 through or 4 through, and the other 3, I lost the momentum. But that momentum and that being able to see the end result and step into it, I can't remember why I started down this path now, just
See,
on a side note.
So I'm going to go, I mean, this is why not only do I have weekly coaching, but I have homework and there's journaling to make sure the momentum keeps going, right? I mean, take a look right now, I'm doing some literal business coaching, and that is sheer momentum. It is really keeping things going at a momentum level, at an action level, moving forward every single week.
Yeah, so part of it was the momentum, and then part of it, I think, was that being able to visual the outcome without getting caught on what's going to stop you in the middle. So you maintain the momentum through that visualizing the outcome. And so, and with the potato, it's literally a second that it takes to implement it. For anything though, it is having, and what I see people do is hit obstacles, and rather than back up and try again, they'll stay there in force. And with the paper straws, they just collapse. There is no amount, once you've got the straw halfway through the potato, no amount of force is going to reinitiate that, because it's now wet. It's now, I suspect the plastic ones are a little bit easier on some level because they don't disintegrate quite as quickly as which is why we're now using metal straws, because I can't stand paper straws.
Yes.
But yeah, it was just a fascinating exercise, and a fascinating exercise to notice what are the hesitation points and recognize in those hesitation points, sometimes it is worth retreating and starting again and maintaining the momentum. And yeah, like I said, I can't remember why I started down this path, but
well, I mean, I even think
tapping
about
into that is key.
I even think about the book writing, because about halfway through, and I remember this point where my momentum was waning.
Yeah.
And
no amount of force is going to reconnect you with that. It's reconnecting with the outcome. It's reconnecting
with the outcome, and then reconnecting with my commitment, because I realized that I was at a point where it was going to seem easier to simply, okay, I don't think this is going to happen. And I didn't do that.
Yeah, I think that one of the benefits of writing the book in 11 days was that momentum was maintained.
Yeah. Well, way back in 2008, when I wrote a book in 4 days, that was literally 24 for the 4 days. I remember having phone conversations with people at 1 and 2 in the morning, because they were questioning, or my commit, it's like something was questioned and we got on the phone. We were literally there. It's like, hey, I'm waning. We got back together. And I want to say there were 9 or 10 people, and 7 of those people completed the task. Yeah. And it was the momentum, and life has a way.
And the companionship in that, you weren't doing it on your own.
And the tribe, right? Yeah. And the tribe.
Makes a huge difference.
There
was one thought that I had just then. The superpowers, bringing us slightly back towards topic.
Yeah. Yes.
One of the things that, I look back on my own and my innate gifts, those moments where the straw hit an obstacle or I hesitated, and then having to come back and reconnect from the beginning and maintain that momentum. And then the more I do that, so I think the first 2 or 3 straws collapsed on me, and then I got 2 through straight away. And then there was another one that kind of didn't work. Now, to me, because they were talking about the potato as a mindset exercise, to me, there is, and you're going to argue this the other way, and that's okay. To me, there is an element of mindset to it, but to me, there's, as much as anything, there's an element of technique to it. If you know the technique to putting the straw through the potato, the mindset is like, yes, there'll be the hesitations and you pick up on the hesitations, but predominantly it's just know the technique, and the technique is do it in one sweep.
I would actually
there's a mindset piece to it.
There's a mindset, but there's a mindset piece, there's an action piece, there's an understanding piece, because if you understand that if you stop, you're not going to get started, you will keep going, whether it's a potato or a book or transforming your life.
Where I see people taking this potato metaphorically, it's that I'm going to force this one through rather than just recognize I missed the mark on that one. Let's rewind and pick up a new straw.
And some people take the straw and they start it with way too much force and it collapses before they've even started it. You know, it's potentially, there are 100 different things, but here's the thing. The more you develop your, and really your superpower, and it's going to create the space for you to figure out what your passion is and have you live in that passion. And you may go through a few potatoes, you may go through a few straws, you may go through a few careers, you may go through a few majors. You may, if you're listening to this at a younger age, you may think, I really need to look at if I want to be this or this or this. The thing is once you can figure out where and what your superpower is, with a little bit of sometimes tribe assistance, sometimes aloneness, you can figure out how to live your passion. And then you can become very, very empowered.
The other piece that I'll add, because I know you're wanting to wrap us up, is the vehicle becomes redundant. When we know our gifts, so there's a client that I've been working with, and there's a toying between employee or self-employed to leverage the gifts. It makes no difference. It really, in terms of the gifts that it makes no difference. And so too often we get consumed by the vehicle. So my healing capabilities that I'm reconnecting with, so I have an innate gift for healing that I had very little awareness of. Now that came out in my nursing. Now I didn't recognize it in my nursing. I assumed it was the medications. I assumed it was like all of the other things, but my innate healing power was there at that time. Now I'm playing with it in Reiki. But whether I'm a nurse in a hospital, or whether I'm a Reiki practitioner, or whether I am a coach and doing it more, less obviously, it's kind of done behind the scenes as such, all 3 of those career paths. So I could be a nurse in a hospital, I could be a Reiki practitioner, or I can be a coach. All 3 of those careers leverage my gifts. And that's what I'm saying. The vehicle doesn't matter. Any one of those gives me the opportunity to leverage the gifts. So letting go of the what the career is or what the task is, just this is my gift and I'm going to bring it to everything I do. My husband does this amazingly.
Amazingly.
And so I just wanted to it doesn't matter where he is, his gifts are brought to life.
Perfect.
And that's at home. It was when he was a carpet layer, and it's now when he's a train driver. The vehicle was not the point. And literally the vehicle of the train in this point. It doesn't matter which train he's on, he's bringing his gift to life.
That's true. That's true. So you've been listening to Empower Hour. Both Amy and myself, thank you. Check out our YouTube channel, Empower Hour. That's where these are posted. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.